You know,
but on the other hand, in Bexhill, you've triumphed, haven't you? So.
In Bexhill, we're absolutely fine. We've had no problem. I was just thinking, actually, there was an exhibition here just before me upstairs, Kerith Wynne-Evans, and his light towers, I don't know if anyone saw that exhibition, those towers were made by the same company that made the coach. And when John, the director, was down here, he explained to me that these will be the last towers that Kerith can build.
Wow.
And I said, why is that? You know, health and safety. He said, no, you can't buy those bulbs anymore. They come in from the Far East and they're no longer manufactured.
Oh.
Because they're not unsafe, but they're just the nature of them as candescent light. You know, we're ironing out all of that in our system, and we're bringing in these new eco-friendly bulbs.
That's
so you
right.
can't get hold of the old 50 watt, 20 watt, 100 watt light bulbs anymore. They're becoming rare. 5 years' time, they won't be around. So anyone who's made work that's got those bulbs in and needs replacement, it's finished.
Do you think human beings are going to become obsolescent?
I don't know. I mean, I was so amazed by the Paralympics. I like that kind of mixture of sort of man-machine ideas. You know, I'm sure, you know, those guys, those super fast runners on those blades. I mean, that's the future. I think that's
extraordinary, isn't it?
Starting to put on exoskeletons and being able to do things. Very interesting.
We're now looking at a piece from pretty much over 20 years ago, aren't we?
Yeah, this is the old Max Gallery.
And this is the old Max Gallery in London. And something happened, Richard, whereby she came in through the bathroom window.
She certainly did. As sung by the Beatles, but I prefer the Joe Cocker version.
Oh, you prefer the Joe Cocker one?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Why?
I just like his gruff
Yeah,
voice,
okay.
isn't it?
Okay.
But, yeah, this is a follow-on. I mean, I was with Max Gallery until 1996. And this was my third exhibition at Matt's Gallery, and it was to follow on 2 years after the oil. And as you understood from those images, the oil was about the illusion of a space getting bigger. And I thought, how can I follow something? It was actually one of the problems that I found with Matt's Gallery is it used to put on solo shows of artists who made site-specific works in that space. And what happened, therefore, is that you were very aware of the accumulation of these ghosts, these old ideas, you know, laminating themselves. And I was very aware of the oil when I went back 2 years later to do another piece. And rather goaded by a national audience who were wanting to see something as good as, I had to come up with something that, you know, was as good as or even better. And I do see this as one of my seminal works. It's called She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. And it's a complete reverse of what the oil was about. It's not an illusion, it's a complete reality. And it's a very physical thing. And what it was just a very, I was going to say normal act. It's actually a very unnormal act of undoing a crystal clear window in the gallery and bringing it into the room and then boxing it back to its original location. So the interior space of the gallery had shrunk and the outside world had expanded into the room. If you can imagine them as two sort of, you know, forms that were flexible. So that one got smaller, that one expanded, rather like the way the diaphragm and the lung work, or lungs work. You know, so the world just came into the gallery, but it came in, but was still defined in that very precious way with brittle glass, the crystal clear window, and it was boxed back to its original location at the perimeter of the room as, you know, puckered plastic like curtain material, and a mimicking top and bottom of the sort of what do you call it? The sort of artificial ceiling, you know, the suspended ceiling. So really, it was like a glazing. It was a kind of a welded panels, and then you drop, you know, softboard into them. And so there was this very precarious and fragile connection between the inner room and the outside world. And what you were doing, it was ironic, you know, you were looking at the very thing you don't look at. You're looking at a window. Usually you look at the world beyond the window. It's rather like looking at your glasses. You know, you don't do it, you look at the things beyond your glasses. So it was taking something that sits at the periphery of our vision that we have no interest normally in, and saying, look at me. Look what I can do to the world. Look what I can do to the architectural space by just moving slightly.
It's fascinating, really, because in one sense you're doing something very simple and straightforward, But in another sense, you're providing an experience which, as far as I remember, was very, very complicated, spatially and visually, and I don't know, in terms of how you coped with the business of walking through the space and looking at it and looking through it and trying to make sense, actually, of what you were seeing.
Yeah.
Because it was actually it was changing all the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was pitched at a slight angle. And again, it was about positioning the onlooker. It was quite difficult to stand back and look just at the window because your back was up against the wall.
Yeah.
You could only really catch it from either side or sort of glimpse quite close to.
Or is that?
That's not part of it. Screwed up five. And it had this rather peculiar, you don't quite get it here, but if you look through the window to the open end outside, it's not quite in line with the boundary wall, and that's because it pitched out beyond and was cut at a slight angle as well. Rather like if you put your hand into an aquarium, it will bend, you get that funny refractive moment happening. So one wasn't quite sure where the boundary was when looking out through that window. There was a slight uncanniness and disturbance towards where the perimeter happened to be. And again, that's all about having an idea and making that idea sit in the world in its best way, and that means you've got to fine-tune it. So I completely distrust ideas, and so that means I have to examine them through lots of model making and drawing to get to the best result. And then, that's like a general sort of mental gymnastics that one gets into before you then actually get to the gallery and start building. And in the process of building, even then there's leeway to work with the unexpected. And that was a rather unexpected moment about, why am I stopping where the window was? Let's just push it a bit more and have that sort of unpredictable moment.
Yeah, very much so. Now what are we looking at?
Well, this is actually a sequence of photographs.
Oh, yes. Yes.
This piece of work was 2003, and it's called Butterfly.
Yes.
And the reason this one's in here is because it opened a couple of doors. The first one is it's about making a work as process. You know, usually the work's very much about processes to a product. You have the product. But here, it was about witnessing a process taking place. And the slide before that was what generated the idea. What I wanted to do is there gets a point, I suppose, in one's career where you start to think, I know my party pieces, I know what I can do really well. And you see it in a lot of artists. You know, there's a point where the crossroads are, do I carry on trying to do things I don't know about, or do I do something what I know about and it's safe? And understandably, and I think it's all right, you know, there are those who will go into a safe direction, which might be repetition or, you know, predictability or finance, you know, financial reward. But what it means is that the sense of taking the risk is subservient to a lot of other issues. And I was aware that I knew I could take that route as well. I could carry on doing oil, you know, around the world, although I never did. But what I thought I'd do is I'd do an exhibition. I was invited at the Wapping Project Space, which was the old hydraulic space that sort of powered water to all the theatres in London to operate the lifts and curtains. Interesting story, that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get right back to something that I couldn't even predict myself. I wanted to do something that I didn't even know what the end product would be, and that meant going into the space and working with a process, getting back to the most purest creative act I could think of.
And we're looking at an image at the moment of presumably your hand.
It's a hand, and what it's holding
that's
is
just
what
scrunched up.
Yeah, what it was the idea came instantly. I found this. What it was, it's a fiver that's been washed in my jeans, and we've all been there. You go like that. You go, what's that? And it's a fiver. Then you do something which is quite extraordinary, and no one is ever taught how to do it. But you think, I mustn't tear that, I've got to undo it. And you start to do something which is incredibly creative. You take a form that's got crunched up, and you've got to unpick it. And if you tear it, you're going to lose the fiver. So there's ways round that. You can soak it again, you can do it. Well, with me, I was kind of like, Jesus, this is the idea. I'm going to take an object, I'm going to crush it, and then I'm going to hydraulically, because it was a hydraulic pump station,
Yeah.
I'm going to hydraulically and whatever
Yeah.
pull that object back out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
what you saw in the next slide sequence was
Yeah.
I bought just the body of a Cessna light aircraft, and I spent about 6 weeks at the University of East London doing a residency with a couple of students where we completely rebuilt this aeroplane. We stripped it all down, we polished it, bolted it all together, riveted it together, and then I got 4 enormous forklift trucks on the Saturday into the car park, and we completely crushed it to pieces. So it's an absolute, shrunken block like that.
Yeah.
Very odd story to that, actually. I had to get it to Wapping from there, and in my usual East End way, I pulled up at a traffic light, and there was a big scaffold lorry, and I said, do you want to earn a couple of bob? Come to the University of East London on Saturday and pick up a bit of metal for me. I need to get it to Wapping. And I said, yeah, okay. The deal was done at the traffic light. And they came,
All right, Governor.
and I said, it's that over there. It needs to go on the back of your lorry, and we need to get it to Wapping, about 10 minutes away. So they grabbed it, and they started to drag it. And I said, be careful, you'll scratch it. And they looked at me as if I was completely mad. And what that was I have artistic license as the artist to smash it up.
Yes.
But I don't want anyone, at that time I didn't want anyone else's marks on that. I'd made that. I didn't want their scratches on it. It would look horrible, even though it was pretty brutalised. So that was a very weird experience as well, which, artists encompass.